If I was writing a cookbook, this recipe would definitely be in it. Part 13, the world's easiest bread, olive style. This version is a very simple variation on a bread recipe that is the first one I ever made, and I've been using it for years now. I love it because it has simple ingredients and there's no additives or preservatives. It's no need. It's really easy to make. You probably already have the ingredients at home. Like you definitely have the ingredients except for maybe the instant yeast. In a medium or large bowl, you're going to combine 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, and 2 teaspoons of salt, and then mix them together. After the dry ingredients are mixed, you're going to add in 1.5 cups of warm water, like the temperature of bath water. Another reason why I love this recipe is you don't need any special tools, like you don't need a food scale or a thermometer. You will need a Dutch oven, or in my case, I use like a covered, like a Corningware dish. You will need that. Do you want to know 2 long-standing irrational fears I've had? One of them is spiders. Ugh. And the other one is working with yeasted breads. I'm proud to announce that spiders no longer terrify me, at least not the way they used to, and I am bravely facing the world of yeasted breads, and this was the first recipe that allowed me to do that. Next, you mix the ingredients until there are no more dry spots of flour in the bowl, and then you're going to cover the bowl either with cling wrap, or in my case, I just used a plate and I put it on top. I let it sit out on the counter for 2 hours. You can have this bread rise for 2 hours or up to 2 days, but then it has to be in the fridge if you wanted to do a long, slow ferment. For the longest time, I used to make this bread plain. And then recently, I've been getting into adding different things into it. Like I've added pesto, I've added feta cheese, cheddar cheese, olives. This one just shows you the olive version. When I first made this bread, I was concerned that adding olives was going to make the bread overall too salty, and I didn't find it too salty. There already is a decent amount of salt in this bread recipe on its own, but if you are sensitive to salt, you could lessen some of the salt if you add the olives. This was a good chance for me to clean out my fridge of all of those partially used olive containers. I used Kalamata olives that were in a brine, and I also used an olive medley that was in oil. For the ones in brine, I chopped them up finely and I squeezed out as much of the brine as I could. And with the ones that were in olive oil, I didn't squeeze any out and it didn't affect the texture of the bread. I was concerned that that might happen, but it was great. It didn't mess with it at all. I put to the side some of the olives I had chopped kind of like in half, like a cross section. It was like the little circle parts. I wanted to use those to top the bread. I thought they would look nice. And the rest of it, they were just diced up. I put the circle cuts of the olives to the side and I stirred in the chopped olives. I covered it with a plate and I put it on the counter for 2 hours. So I live in New York State. This is January. It's cold out. And I left it in the kitchen, and the kitchen was kind of cool. If the kitchen is warm, things will ferment more quickly. Now, again, this is a very forgiving dough. I haven't seen it overproof. That hasn't been a problem, but it's just something that I would keep in mind, like not to keep it like right next to the stove or in direct sunlight. I just put it on the counter for 2 hours and it proved perfectly fine. After the 2 hours is up, I preheated the oven to 450 and I put the Corningware, both the top and the bottom, in there to preheat as well. Next, I got my piece of parchment paper ready and I floured my work surface, floured my hands and a dough scraper, and then I scraped the dough onto the floured surface. You don't need to have a dough scraper, it just makes it easier if you do. You could use well-floured hands. After I turned it out on the surface, I gently folded it over itself 4 to 6 times, and then I took the whole loaf and I flipped it seam side down and put it on the parchment paper. Since I wanted to use those olive rounds to top the loaf, I just dusted off some of the extra flour that was now on the top of the loaf and I stuck the olives on top. Normally, I wouldn't dust the top of the loaf, but just because I was doing add-ons, I did that. They stuck pretty good. A few of them fell off when I took it out of the parchment paper, but I really liked what it added to the presentation of the loaf. After the oven and the Dutch oven, or in my case, the Corningware, preheated, I took the Corningware out of the oven and I picked up the parchment paper by the corners, placed the whole loaf inside the container, put the top on, put it back in the oven, cooked it for 30 minutes covered, took the top off, and cooked it for an additional 12 minutes uncovered. A few things I wanted to say about this recipe. It's the first one that I ever tried with yeast, and it's been consistently good from the first time I tried to make it. So I'm really happy with this recipe. People get really excited about a fresh loaf of bread, so it's nice for when you're having people over for presentation, or if you're just trying to get away from like grocery store bread. There's a few things to remember though. I don't know how this would react with other types of flour. I'm using a very generic all-purpose flour, and these videos can go out all around the world, and this world has a lot of flours, and so I don't know how the other ones would react, but this is an all-purpose white flour that we have here in the United States. Another thing that I wanted to acknowledge is that this is a recipe that is given in cups and teaspoons. It's not given in weight. So some people, when they're baking, they really love to use a food scale so they can measure out grams. I'm not one of those people. I really just like to use a cup and a teaspoon. I find that it works fine. I've never had this recipe go poorly. Maybe as I get into different types of yeasted breads, that will be different. I imagine that's true, but this is really just for people who are interested in using those types of tools in baking the bread. I don't know if this is universal measurements like in different parts of the world, but here in the United States, a cup is like an 8-ounce container. So just wanted to give you a heads up with that. After you take your bread out of the oven, you just let it cool for, I'd say, like a half hour. If you cut into it too soon, um, it kind of, it just like ruins the texture a little bit. So I would just give it a half hour. Um, I mean, I've cut into it right away. It's still delicious. It just makes it like a little bit like gummy, I guess. But in a perfect world, give it a half hour to cool down. Now, for the 6 questions I ask myself about every recipe that I make. And the first one is, how much does it cost? I remember doing a breakdown of this a while back, and I think it was something crazy, like under 50 cents a loaf. So when you add the olives in there, let's just say like 60 cents a loaf. I mean, it's amazing. What a deal. Then I ask myself, is it easy? Yes, it is easy. It's especially easy for bread. Then I ask myself, is it quick? No, it's not quick. You have to let it rise for 2 hours. You have to cook it for 42 minutes. So I wouldn't call it quick. Next, I ask myself, can I freeze it? Yes, you can. I like to cook the loaf, slice it, and then freeze the slices. Then I ask myself, can I make it in bulk? Well, like kind of. Like if you had a whole bunch of bowls and a whole bunch of Dutch ovens, I guess you could. Um, so like yeah, it depends on how much equipment you have. Lastly, I ask myself, how does it taste? It's delicious. I love it. It's always come out really well. People are excited when they see a fresh loaf of bread. It's been very popular and it's very delicious. And if you try it, I hope you enjoy it.